Now let me move on to the calculation of the risk of the portfolio. But before explaining the risk of the portfolio, we need to understand two concepts. One is the covariance, another one is correlation. Say for example, covariance firstly means the degree to which two variables move in the same direction. Now say for example, I have the return on I'm giving the returns on security X and the returns on security Y. So I want to see what is the degree to which the returns on these two securities move in the same direction, for which I will calculate the covariance, which will be given as the returns on security X minus the expected return on security X multiplied by the return on security Y minus the expected return on security Y. Now, the covariance has one of the limitations, that if I increase the absolute values of x and y, the covariance tends to increase. So, in this, which actually may not be the case. So, in this regard, the another measure that is used is the correlation, which is a standardized measure of covariance. Now, if this is the covariance between x and y, and how do I calculate the correlation? Correlation is denoted by rxy. So the correlation is equal to covariance between x and y divided by the standard deviation of x into standard deviation of y. So this is correlation is nothing but the standardized measure of covariance. So in this regard, I can say that covariance between x and y is also equal to the correlation coefficient between x and y multiplied by the standard deviation of x into standard deviation of y. Now let me calculate the risk of the portfolio. Now the risk of the portfolio is actually measured by the standard deviation, and I will take a two commodity case. Later on I will take it to the three commodity case in the example. Now the risk on the portfolio is measured as the weight of security 1 multiplied by the standard deviation of security 1 squared plus weight of security 2 multiplied by the standard deviation of security 2 squared plus 2 times the weight of security 1 into the weight of security 2, and then multiplied it with the covariance between security 1 and 2. I have to take the root, so I will multiply 1 by 2. I can also replace this coefficient of replace this covariance by using correlation between security x and y into standard deviation of x into standard deviation of y. Now in this case, in this way, I can calculate the coefficient of correlation. I can calculate, the risk on the portfolio. Now let me take an example to explain how do we actually calculate the risk of the portfolio. Say for example, I am given three securities. Say for example, security A, security B and security C. I am given that proportion, or I can say the weight of these securities in the portfolio is equal to 0.3, 0.5 and 0.2. I am also given the standard deviation on security 1 equal to 6, or standard deviation of security 2 equal to 9, and the standard deviation of security 3 equal to 10. I'm also given the coefficient of correlation between security 1 and 2 equal to 0.4, the coefficient of correlation between security 1 and 3 equal to 0.6, and the coefficient of correlation between security 2 and 3 equal to 0.7. And I'm asked to calculate the risk on the portfolio. Simply putting it, it is going to be equal to the weight of security 1, that is equal to 0.3 multiplied by, let me take the square here only, multiplied by the standard deviation of security 1 square plus weight of security 2, that is 0.5 square, multiplied by the standard deviation of security 2 plus weight of security 3 squared plus standard deviation of security 3 squared plus 2 times the weight of security 1 into the weight of security 2, that is equal to 0.5. Now I have to multiply it with the coefficient of correlation, that is equal to 0.4, and I have to also multiply it with the standard deviation of security A into the standard deviation of security B. Then I will move on to the 2 times the weight of security 1, that is equal to 0.3, and the weight of security 3, that is equal to 0.2, and I have to multiply it with the coefficient of correlation between security 1 and 3, that is equal to 0.6, and the standard deviation of security 1 multiplied by the standard deviation of security 3, that is equal to 10. Now I will move on to security 2 and 3, where I will use 2 times the weight of security 2, that is equal to 0.5, into weight of security 3, that is equal to 0.2, multiplied with the coefficient of correlation between security 2 and 3, multiplied with standard deviation of security 2, and multiplied with the standard deviation of security 3. I have to take its root, so the standard deviation of this portfolio will be equal to 7.31%.